What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're going over technical analysis for entries and exits on stocks that I am looking at for the week. That sounds like something you're interested in. Consider subscribing, as I do also provide a weekly update that goes over events, current events, upcoming events, and earnings all in the same week and what I believe the thesis will be for that week. And you can also check me out on X at Hemi137 as I do provide a daily pulse on the market. So let's dive straight in today and see what we got cooking. So as of right now, we're kind of getting that hype for Trump. And as soon as Friday pretty much hit, we started getting a massive pump. We did have some fear just briefly going into that because of core CPI and with banks last week. So we dove down and essentially bounced off of a very strong support here at the 57.33 and also this trend line that's been going on for quite a while. So we've been in this channel since we've been paused, since rates have been paused, and looks like we finally broke above this short-term trend here. So I can go ahead and remove this. But so again, coming into Monday, we're going to want to make sure that we can hold above this 6K mark. If not, that could be a problem as we may be coming further back down. Now, on the higher time frames, this does look like it did break. So this particular zone here will be extremely important coming into Tuesday, as the market will be closed on Monday. So again, we're flirting with a potential correction here on the higher time frames. Now, as you can see, this has been such a tight range here in this upward channel. Again, there's so much manipulation going on here, and this is why I said if you actually move this in to this tight range, you would actually have broken out and retesting. So we'll have to, again, like I said, that 6K zone, we want to make sure we can keep above that this week. If not, we could be turning over as we're just starting to get kind of into the main earnings. Especially, we were expecting that the Big 10 banks would do well because people are still worried and concerned about the banking crisis going on. But on the same token, we're going to start having regional banks. So you got more risk coming on the table of potential market sell-off. So again, with everything currently going on, we're going to have to see the banking restrictions as far as lending right now have been pretty loose. But again, you're running out of bank term funding program. And again, there's so much manipulation going on with the data. You don't know what's actually true at this point. But what we've seen, the major indicators have shown is that you've been in a recession and that things are accelerating at a rapid rate as far as unemployment and things essentially seizing up. So again, all primarily based off of the fact that you are pumping $1 trillion every 90 days and so with a essentially debt ceiling coming in on Tuesday, if you aren't doing something to correct that quickly, that could be a very big problem. So again, technical wise, a very, very tight channel. See, as you zoom in here, you can see like it has broke the channel on the higher time frame. So again, we need to see, it's not saying that this can't push up, like this candle can push up. We still got about 2 weeks to this month. If that does happen to stay below that 6K mark, again, that could be quite critical moving forward. So we will see what happens there and then kind of go from that point. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, obviously, coming into this weekend has been massive because of Trump and a lot of pro-Trump and cryptocurrency. He did drop a meme coin that went absolutely crazy over the weekend. So we'll watch and we'll see how that plays out. But as of right now, we are trying to attempt to go for the all-time high again. We'll see if that's achievable. Again, I said we would at some point try to push back up, maybe hit 120 one last time before we turn over. We'll have to see. Momentum with this thing has been great, especially because of Trump. But again, you have a lot of things. You have inflation concerns and a lot of other things that could start influencing this pretty heavily. So again, we will watch and see. But this current level is becoming more like a speed bump here at this around that 99K mark. And then obviously your all-time high here. I have a smaller speed bump zone here as well. But again, your major support here is being around that 90K mark, and that's kind of where we bounced out of. People bought, and then we kind of rocketed straight out of there again. So we'll be watching that moving forward in this week. Again, what policies Trump puts out this first week will have a lot of influence on the market too. So do keep that in mind. There's a lot of worries and concerns about tariffs and inflation. So again, another big thing we want to pay attention to with what's going on here. So, but that is crypto. It's looking solid as of right now. Again, I would just want to remind everybody it's still up like 560%. So to keep pushing forward, I think you're really pushing it at this point. I can go a little bit higher, but are you willing to risk, maybe a 10K move for, potential, what is it? I think we could potentially drop all the way down to 70, so another 30K drop for 10K move. The ratio just isn't there for me at this point. But again, we never know. It could continue to just keep running up, but we'll see what happens there. Then we have Tesla on deck. Tesla looks like it is attempted to try to break out here and got shoved right back down. Looks like you're creating a massive bull flag here, which is a strong possibility because I've mentioned this before, is that what we're looking for here is humanoids. And I think Tesla is primed to be set up for that and could potentially have an NVIDIA type move because of humanoids, as we are starting to see some news related items analysis start to roll out about humanoids. So that'll be interesting to watch. But again, right now, strong support has really been around that 383. We'll see if that continues to be the case this week. If Tesla's really going to start making a move this week, it needs to break above this 430. Again, their earnings are just a week away. We got to get through this week, and Tesla will be reporting on Super Bowl week. Again, they've been moved back in the Super Bowl week. It's been about a year and a half since that's happened. So we'll watch and we'll see how this does play out. But Tesla could be primed. We could get one last pullback this week before it runs. But again, once they have earnings, that's the big thing when we start getting to earnings, is you want to pay attention to, even if they do good on earnings, if their forward guidance is bad or something, you want to watch price action. And if it starts to sell off, like we've seen NVIDIA do, that could be largely concerning again. So, but again, we're currently kind of holding this range pretty well. So we'll continue to watch that. RX is another big one I really like. It's really holding this $6 mark. So far, it's still continuing to hold that. I think we can get another last pump up to 8. There's a lot of potential for 2025. I think 2025, I really like RX. You got potentially big partnership coming up at the end of February, and then you got a lot of approvals that are supposed to be released throughout the remainder of this year. So you have a lot of potential of this thing potentially breaking out. So, and it's one of or becoming profitable is what I'm hearing. So we'll see if that's to be true. But if that's the case, this thing could really start moving. And again, if you get drug approval for a pharmaceutical, it can go rapidly. And like I said, I don't like to trade pharmaceuticals. I'm not one to push it. The only reason I like this one better is because it's AI driven and is expediting the process, and has tech behind it. It's not just a pharmaceutical. And so that's why I do like RX. So we'll see what happens here. But as of right now, it's playing again the $6 to $8 range right now very well. For how much longer, I don't know, but it is consolidating very nicely. So I do like that. AMD, still very much like AMD. AMD could be a big winner in the coming years. I've been slowly accumulating this one for a year to two hold. Because of that fact, I do believe it's going to start catching up with NVIDIA and understand the differences between the chips, because there is a huge difference between the chips. I'm not going to get into that here, but ultimately, I do believe they'll start recovering and chasing NVIDIA moving forward. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, it's kind of had this really sloppy zone here. As you can see, it looks like there's multiple zones that are kind of sitting together here. But as of right now, it's kind of really holding around this 120 mark in general. Accumulating here could potentially be really good for going up. I do believe it can recover all-time highs really easy here. Once we start kind of getting through this debt, when we start unwinding this debt bomb that we currently got, I think this could start recovering really well. But if we have another inflationary cycle, be warned, this thing can come down even more. I wouldn't surprise if you even see it potentially down here around the 100. That's why I said you want to get into entries in which it's already sold off pretty heavy and anticipate it to potentially drop even more. So don't get too discouraged. But ultimately, again, I think this thing will recover very well. So. And then there's a lot of ones here I would love to go over, like Amazon, Apple, a lot of these Mag 7 stocks. But at this point, they're just not, they need to pull back further for me. So I don't want to make people think that I don't play those. I do play Mag 7 a lot, but right now they're too overextended. We almost need a cataclysmic event for things to be pulling back at this point. So. And same with SoFi. I really like SoFi. It did hold support here at that $14 mark. Again, this is a pretty strong support here, but we'll have to see roughly around this 1537 mark. We are hitting close to all-time highs. We'll see if this thing gets rejected here at the $17 mark and rolls back over. But again, on this higher time frames, these things are just so overextended. Like we need at least a pullback to the 11. But it looks like a potentially bull flag here. So could potentially try to run up to 22. So we'll watch and we'll see here. But I like SoFi moving forward, but we'll have to continue to watch and see how that does play out. ELF, another big one. Looks like we're creating a head and shoulders here on this higher time frame. So we'll see what happens there. Looking for this thing. I got this zone kind of all over the place because it's been very tight in this range. But currently kind of holding around that $36 mark. Some strong support here around the 114. I think anything 114 or below is potentially a good buy. There's some concerns again about tariffs. I have a little worry about tariffs and what that may happen to ELF, but they will just essentially push that cost onto the users. So I think they could still potentially do well moving forward. But right now, holding this range very well. Like I said, there's a lot of these that are been consolidating for a while. And so if it holds between this, again, 135 and this 112 mark, could be a good place to accumulate for the most part. P10 is one I've been buying this one around this $8 mark and this 863 mark. We are recovering some. We'll see if this pulls back to the 861 mark. I do believe over the next year, this is a drilling company for oil. I do believe it can recover potentially close to 15. I'm not saying it will, but I think there's a strong possibility it can, just with the change in new administration. So we'll watch this. But as of right now, it has broken back into this next range again. So we'll see if it can hold this 866 mark moving forward. So commodities are definitely a hot topic right now, especially oil, because of everything that's currently going on. So we'll definitely see. We'll see what happens there. But I do like P10 moving forward for that. Let's see, a lot of these again are too overextended at this point. Again, I'm not going to continue to bring up the same ones. I do like to bring up Tesla just because I believe it's going to have a massive move, and so you're not really going to have a choice. The other ones I think are just too overheated at this point, so I don't really want to go over those too much. BA, again, I like this. This maybe want to get this. Holding this 165, I think, is really good as of right now. I've talked about this breakout for a while as it was coming down. Looks like this 165 might be a good stand here. Again, the fundamentals of this company are not good, but technical wise, this looks like a great play in general. But again, I do not like the company at all and where it's at, especially with the new administration coming in. I'm not really sure what could potentially happen here. Probably nothing at all. But again, there's been billions of dollars that have been pushed out to Ukraine, and that comes back to Boeing and Lockheed Martin, a lot of these. So will be interesting to watch and see what happens moving forward. But right now, could get a nice potential gain. Again, recovering 75% of this descending wedge, so we could potentially see a 221 moving forward. So I do really like, technical wise, I like VA, but again, fundamental wise, I do not like VA. Wing is one I've been watching really, really closely. This thing is wild. I remember this thing being back at these levels over here, around the 150 mark and stuff. So the fact it is coming down, we are starting to kind of get a potentially descending wedge here. So this might be a really good play moving forward as well. I know with the price of inflation with chicken and stuff was kind of concerning originally, but looks like we could be getting a descending wedge here. So definitely what I want to look at here. You have the 200 here. That's what this is marked off here. So the 200 daily is marked down here. So if we do sell off a little bit more, I think that may be the bottom here on the 240, and this thing may pop back up to 100. So I may look at getting a position here in Wing myself, but I do really like Wing as well as another one that's coming up. And as always, JP Morgan, as always, it's because it's the biggest bank in the U.S. A lot of people have moved their money into JP Morgan, so wasn't anticipating this doing bad. But ultimately, on the same token, the CEO came out, Jamie Dimon, and he said he's been talking about his worries and concerns for the future. Something is up. He knows something. Yellen has been screaming that things are about ready to blow up, even though she said they were strong and resilient. So however you want to take that, I highly advise you check out my weekly update. I get more in depth with that kind of stuff. I try not to talk about that stuff too much here. I try to talk more about the technicals here. So, but with that being said, again, it's kind of in a price discovery at this point. So we'll have to see what happens there. Amat is one I've talked about this one briefly a couple of weeks ago. It looks like we were starting to break out. Ideally, what we'd like is this. It looks like there's kind of a speed bump here. So we'll see if it rejects this week and pulls back to the 172. That could be a potentially great entry for Amat as well. Again, there's a lot of support there for the AI infrastructure plays. I think could be a strong possibility here. So looking for a potential play back there for an entry. If you haven't gotten in roughly around this 169 mark. And then I believe that may be everything here as of right now. I'm going to go ahead and give a mention to Moderna. Now, this one you're going to have to be extremely careful. I'm not a huge fan of this company, but we are hitting, again, that kind of all-time low here. And they've just been awarded another $150 million or 500. I think it was 500 million. I have to look. They got 150, I believe, back in July for the bird flu vaccine. Now this thing is crashing down. So it could be a very good entry for this thing to potentially start rising up, especially if there's any kind of bird flu pandemic thing going on. Only one person has died from it, so the CDC really hasn't deemed it as being really horrible bad. But right now, again, they just dished out another a couple million for this thing. So wouldn't be surprised if this thing does recover at least the 200. I think could be a possibility. And then we'll see what happens. This, obviously, pandemic, I don't know if we're going to see that kind of move, but I think bird flu, you might get half that move. Maybe better, but again, worth looking at. But I do believe there's a lot of risk to this, so just be mindful of that. So I wouldn't definitely whole account this thing, but maybe a little bag of this might not be too bad. Again, especially if you can recover a large amount of this, maybe even up to the 300, you could potentially get a nice play out of that too. Again, a longer swing. You have to understand a lot of these are swings and for maybe a couple of months, just depending on how quickly it can recover, or maybe a year or so. So those are things you just want to keep an eye on. So, but with that being said, if you made it this far, go ahead and drop a like. And until next time, I will see you guys later.